Well, hello there. How's it going? We got one person. Wait, hold on. You like that? It's like FX sound. It's a Pepsi, so you can calm down here. It's not. I'm not going to be a meat Kevin here. So the Bills lost. All right, it's all right. We'll move on. I'm not that mad. They deserve to lose that game anyways, honestly. So okay. It's Gil. Woo! I am stoked the Lions are in. I was hoping for a Bills Lions Super Bowl, but man, if we can get the Lions, this is the year of the underdogs, but knowing my luck, it'll just be Chiefs winning it all again. Dude, I'm not that's strongman's. I'm not trying to steal strongman's thing. Like that's his thing totally, but I don't really have a sound effect. Who is it? Sounds like a naked NVIDIA call blowing through break even. Oh my god. Yeah. So the latest update is Paul's down like $7.5 million estimated after last week's activity. So there's a calculator now. Keeps track of it. So he's just this is why it's hard to say, generational wealth is tough because somebody just blows it up, right? So is what it is in America. All right, so we'll get into it. So I saw this story. I saw this story like 2 weeks ago. I think it was. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So I'm like, I've never read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I really don't. Never really gave a shit. He sounds like a whack job, but I'm like, you know what? Let's look at the book. I'm not going to talk about him the person. Maybe I'll do another episode where we look at like him the person. So I wanted to look at like the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I'm like, you know what? I'll read it. What the hell? Why not? So yeah, he admits it makes sense why he's doing this when I read the book, because I mean, this looks insane when you read this headline. Like you're thinking that there's no way this is true. That he's like, he basically was bragging that he was like $1.2 billion in debt to banks, but he doesn't care because if the banks go bust, what does he give a shit? It's their problem. He has the assets, right? So I was like, well, let's figure out this dude. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna rip through some of the notes I wrote. I'm not gonna go through the whole 200-page book. All right, I'd be here all night. I'm just gonna go through some of the quotes that I highlighted. So this is Rich Dad Poor Dad. So one thing I'll just state is before I look at this, I understand. So he was a man that grew up, in a different time. He grew up basically in the 50s, I think. He talks about like after the war. So he grew up in a different age, right? And then this book came out in 1997. So we have to color it in that way. This book did not experience .com. It didn't experience the Great Recession, the tech boom, COVID. Like none of that's applicable to this book. He wrote it before all that stuff happened. So and it's based on his experiences from his childhood, which means, from the 50s. You didn't have the stock market wasn't readily available to any of us at that point. You couldn't put trades in or open an account. It must have been very difficult if you could have. So I think that like that context is important if you look at a book like this, these historical books about finance or so forth. And even my experience that I've said, I got wrecked in .com. I didn't even know what ETFs were. So like my investing is flowered by my age. If I grew up now, it'd be different, right? I would have been a different person, different experiences. So so basically he has these two characters, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I wonder I don't know if people have speculated, because I find it hard to believe this Rich Dad character exists exactly how he says. It's very like when I was a kid, I had like I almost had like a landscaping business with my friends. We would do various like clearing land and lawn mowing for people for money, not semi-regular basis. I don't know, like I never had some adult just out of the blue just wanted to like teach me the detail about finance or money that this guy claims his friend's dad wanted to. So I don't know. Maybe it's true. I have seen online where some people are skeptical of some of the detail, if it's fiction to some degree or not. his stories. So basically, he's flowering it. I don't want to get, I mean, you can read it, but his dad was a college educated teacher, right? And he was a union man, by the book, blah, blah. His friend's dad was like this eighth grade dropout, I guess. And he started businesses and he had less education, but he owned a bunch of stores and, find out he's got more money. So cool. So let's just talk about some of the comments or quotes in the book. So this was like in the beginning. Although my dad worked hard, I noticed that one dad had a habit of putting his brain to sleep when it came to finance. The other had a habit of exercising his brain. He talks about like exercising your finance brain, which in broad sense, yes. I mean, I think that's a great idea. Like, let's not get too far into it, but that is you should have some sort of finance intelligence living in America. Think of all the people. I think I've shown some videos. These people that had huge 401ks before the Great Recession, and all of a sudden their 401k probably got cut in half, and without any sort of financial knowledge about understanding what happened, some of them probably sold and made the worst financial decision of their life that was irreversibly damaged their financial futures by selling at that moment because they didn't, you could argue, have any sort of financial understanding of what happened or what even was in their 401ks. Honestly, I've seen the video interviews of these people just stunned by the pure red loss in their brokerage accounts. And they, so yeah, I mean, his idea is you should have like a financial literacy. Like if I just keep it at that level, yeah, totally. I don't disagree with that. Okay. So he's still talking in the beginning of the book. Um, so his dad would, or I get confused because he's terribly, he doesn't write very well. So he goes back and forth with these two fictional dads. So my rich dad, on the other hand, would always refer to himself as rich. He would say things like, I'm a rich man, and rich people don't do this." Even when he was flat broke after financial setback, he continued to refer to himself as a rich man. So he's talking about like mindset. So like the rich man always considered himself rich, even if he was poor up to his eyeballs, whereas his dad would say the opposite, right? I guess you could argue like, you know, people that were in debt and up to their eyeballs, rich people could have more freaking liabilities than assets at certain points in their life, but I guess would they really call themselves rich? I mean, it was kind of a weird quote. Let's see. The other encouraged me to study to be rich, to understand how money works, and to learn how I have to work for me. I don't work for money, were the words he would repeat over again. Money works for me. So his whole like concept of like his dad, the educated teacher, would work just to pay bills, whereas money was just a way to pay his bills, right? And then the rich dad was like, well, no, no, the money is just put to work to generate income for me in the future. Um, so that's part of this dichotomy between these two dads. So it's just like, just me, I'm like, okay, fine, fair enough. Life pushes us all. Here's the part. Life pushes all of us around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lessons and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means that they need and want to learn something. They learn to move on. Most quit, and a few like you fight. So he's talking about like, I thought this was actually a good quote because um, I've said this to people online, like, how bad do you want things in life? I mean, life is tough, and I started out after college. I basically, my first shot at college, I got a history degree that I couldn't use. I was doing construction, and I was like, do I just sulk and cry and say, well, this sucks? No, I went to night school, worked my ass off for 3 years, and then I bought a house and fixed it up so I could sell it for a profit. So I like some of this messaging in this book that yeah, life does push you around. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to keep living with your parents and sulking about how you never have money? Like, what are you going to do about it? And I've challenged people before online. They're like, well, my town sucks. Like, they'll use that excuse. I'm like, move. Why can't you move? I grew up in a different town than I live in now because I knew I didn't want to live in that town. So I knew that the city I grew up in the suburbs of a city, but I knew I didn't want to live there. So I moved. And I didn't move like cross country. I just moved like 3 hours east. But I made that decision in my head. I just was like, this is a shitty area to me, and I don't want to live here. So a lot of people like are so opposed to moving. And I'm just like, tough shit, dude. Like, life sucks. If you want to be, if you want to do specific types of work, you might have to move. All right. And if it doesn't work, then you got no one to blame but yourself. Right. A lot of people that become accountants, you kind of need to move to a big city to get that CPA. You might have to move to a big city to get into a big four, do your time, get your CPA license. Okay. Well, it's just that's the cards you're dealt. You got to deal with it. Uh-oh. I'm gonna stick on that. I don't want to get too far. So read this part. Rich Dad continued, or if you're a kind person who has no guts, you just give up every time life pushes you, and you're a kind person. You'll live all your life playing it safe, doing the right thing, saving yourself for an event that never happens. Then you die a boring old man. I you probably thought I was going to make fun of Kiyosaki's book, the whole thing. Like I like this the start of it. I kind of agree. Like this type of mindset, which is kind of funny though, because I ended up more like his poor dad as far as career. But yeah, I mean, this is America for people, and this is why it's the greatest country in the world. You know, you can, start from nothing, or you can have a shitty deck of cards like I did, where I got in trouble with the law. I got a terrible college degree that didn't help me, my history degree, but it didn't. That wasn't like the end of my story. I was able to, you know, change and reinvent myself. So, and any of you can too. The only thing that's going to really saddle you in America is debt. Honestly, like debt is what's going to stop you from living any sort of decisions. Other than that, time doesn't matter anymore, man. Man, you can go become a doctor at 50. You can do whatever you want these days. It's just the debt part is what's going to hold you back. All right, so we'll go to the next comment. Rich Dad said, and that's exactly what most people do. They quit and they go look for another job, a better opportunity, and a higher pay, actually thinking that this will solve their problem. In most cases, it won't. So he draws this weird dichotomy, like the rich dad thinks quitting, like he's trying to draw this analogy that the rich guy doesn't quit. Um, it's kind of odd because I've listened to podcasts and done other articles I've read, and man, rich people quit a lot. Like that's one thing I've noticed about like billionaires, and I've heard podcasts like Freakonomics did a podcast about quitting. Like rich people quit all the time. What are you talking about? How many like you could look at billionaires that they might have ended at a certain company, but before that company, they could have had a bunch of companies that failed, right? Or they could have quit certain jobs. Like there's no this whole buckle your bootstraps up and don't quit. That whole distinction between like successful or not successful people is horseshit. All right. Like I've quit lots of stuff. Okay. I've pursued things that make me happy first. Money always comes second. So this is the one thing I could get into where I totally don't agree with him. But like your happiness is important. Because the most important thing you can do for your life is to keep your stress down. Stress will kill you more than anything. Stress is the worst thing possible. I mean, that you could experience. Like I just try and actively avoid stress as much as I can. But this whole thing about like rich successful people are not quitters, like that's not true. This is not true. All right. And like I can go both ways. You can talk, there's the guy that worked at a company for 50 years, same company from beginning and end. Then there's the other person that I get to interview for an accounting job, and I look and they've had 8 jobs in 2 years. Okay, like but you like those are the spectrum. But yeah, you can quit jobs that you don't like. But you can go too far with it, obviously. But like, I don't see how this is such a separation to say quitters or losers or rich people don't quit and they keep trying. Like it's a weird split. Like just pursue things that make you happy. Don't go over too far with it. Don't be quitting jobs every month because that's a little bit weird. Rich Dad explained this point of view over again, which he called lesson number one: the poor and the middle class work for money, and the rich have money work for them. Now, okay, let's switch, present. Hold on a second. So this part, so maybe okay, I'm going to cut him a break because maybe this wasn't a thing, honestly, when he wrote this book. I don't know. But I don't know if you're like rich people take out massive amounts of debt. So this idea of rich dad, poor dad that says rich people have limited debt and they just dump all their money into assets that produce more income for them. It's like total bullshit, I think. Like this whole concept. Like, why are rich people rich? Because they know how to do things like avoid taxes, right? They know how the things you have to pay money on, they can avoid because they have lots of CPAs and lawyers that can teach them how to do this stuff. Or honestly, KPMG does this shit too. KPMG will go to billionaires and tell them how to avoid taxes and other things like that. So that part of being rich is true, but rich people don't actively buy assets exclusively outside of anything else and avoid debt. Like that whole part of rich dad poor dad makes no sense. So there's like this. So this was an article by Forbes about pledging. So rich people take their shares, so they don't get a salary, right? They don't get paid. Everyone, oh well, Elon only gets paid $1. This other CEO gets paid $5. Yeah, they get massive stock compensation plans, and then what do? They then borrow against the value of their stock options, called pledging. So this is what Elon did to buy Twitter to some degree. He took loans out. He took massive amounts of loans. He pledged shares of Tesla against Twitter. And like, here's all these guys. Like, percentage of shares pledged to shares owned. So Elon, 36%. This article is a little ways away. Elon or Larry Ellison, 27%, which means they've used these shares as like a debt leveraged instrument. So they keep the shares, but it's like a margin loan on steroids, I guess. Um, so these are rich, successful people, and they're using massive amounts of debt to do the things that they want. A lot of it's just tax avoidance. So that part of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now again, I don't know if was this a thing when he wrote this book. I don't know. Like I don't know if this, maybe this wasn't a thing in the 90s. Maybe it's something that developed later on. So we'll cut him a break. I'm not gonna call him a clown for that. So, okay, this article. That is a great place to learn to do it. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then you will teach. I will teach you, but only for this is just like this rich dad says awkward things. I have a hard time believing that a rich, successful man would just decide he's going to say all these things to a kid. But that's just me thinking about it. All right, let's go. Let me go next one. Mhm. I didn't highlight tons of stuff, so we'll keep going. But every day they get up, that old fear wakes up in them. For millions of people, that old fear keeps them awake all night, causing a night of turmoil and worry. So they get up, they go to work, hoping that the paycheck will kill their gnawing fear at their soul. Money is running their lives, and they refuse to tell the truth. That is, money is in control of their emotions and soul. That I think that's was actually a really good statement by him in this book, and I think you can go watch Caleb Hammer, right? These people, it's not even that they spend every dollar. It's like, no, no, no. They spend every dollar they're about to make. It goes beyond this. And I can only imagine. I'm not a person that's ever lived like this, so I can't really speak about, but like I can imagine that it would be true. This gnawing fear of like homelessness, and because you have no, like, you don't have a career, you're living beyond even your means, let alone paycheck to paycheck. So yeah, that's an interesting statement. And can you help these people? I don't know. Is this beyond a rich dad poor dad analogy? I just think there's a lot of people in America that suck with finance, and I've tried to help some of them, and here they are. They this is how they live. They live like that. This little statement. That's how they live their life. And can some people get out of that mindset? I have yet to help get someone out of that mindset. I'll be honest with you. They and money's not. I've had people that I've tried to help with their finances, and they've come into big amounts of money. It doesn't seem to matter. Eventually, they piss it all away. I've seen people that got big life insurance payouts, and other things like that. And if they have, I don't want to call it a poor person mind. It's a bad way to say it. It's just this certain mindset being terrible with money, like burning through your pocket with money. Um, it's and money doesn't fix it. They go crazy and they start doing things that they're outside of what they would do normally, and they end up back in the same state. So it is what it is. Um, okay. Now, okay, there's another part. Um, in fact, the reason many rich people are rich isn't because of desire, but because of fear. They believe that money can eliminate the fear of being poor, so they amass tons of it, only to find the fear gets worse. Now they fear losing money. I have friends who keep working even though they have plenty. I know who have millions who are more afraid now than when they were poor. They're terrified of losing it all. I seriously doubt. that is what drives most millionaires. And I listen to some podcasts where they claim to talk to millionaires, but um I don't think that's what drives them. I think they're responsible with money, and I think they are career driven. I would assume a lot of millionaires are probably very successful business people. They enjoy the work they do. I don't think they're gnawed at their soul that they're going to be poor again. I don't think that. I find this statement hard. I mean, could the person he talked to? Yeah, sure. But I don't believe this is like all millionaires are like this. It might just be this one person or one or two people he talked to. They worry about what their friends would say if they lost all their money. Well, okay, there's millionaires that make really stupid decisions with their money and they like risk they want to be billionaires. Um so I don't think that person was worried about losing it all. They want to be just more and more. Maybe some millionaires are probably greedy pigs. And I don't think they really think about losing it all. They just think about more. So like weird statements here. All right. The main cause of poverty or financial struggle is fear and ignorance, not the economy or the government or the rich. It's self inflicted fear and ignorance of being trapped. Hmm, interesting. I don't agree. I don't disagree with that statement, actually. So fair enough. Um, okay. So he talks about this is like the mindset of like, so remember he grew up in an age in like the 50s, right? In 50s, 60s. So Kiyosaki grew up in that era. So I love this statement. He talked about, so this is the rich dad. He talked about the gold standard that America was on and that each dollar bill was a silver certificate. Okay. What he was concerned about was the rumors that it would someday go off the gold standard. It did in the 70s. Okay. And our dollar would no longer be backed by something tangible. There really was. I've talked to my dad about this. There was fear because it was the unknown, right? The We went off the standard. So everyone thought so there were people that thought money would be worthless paper after that. Just like when Y2K, a significant amount of people thought the computers were going to go down when we crossed over to the new millennia. So like there's silly things like this. Yeah, I mean, turns out it was all nothing. It was so he thought that the whole system would collapse because of the gold standard going away. Never. That never happened. So anyways, it's just that's the times they lived in. Okay. I'm not going to go through all his rules, but rule number 1, you must know the difference between asset and a liability. Oh my god. Okay. And I know that, oh my god, I could talk about this for probably like an hour. I get where he's going with this to some degree. Um, so he's talking about he wants you to look at like your money differently. His whole idea is that this is not gap accounting, which I understand. I'm an accountant, so we'll just talk about what he wants. An asset is something that puts money in my pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket. Okay. That's not what an asset is, but cool. You can go look at what Gap considers an asset. That's what I think an asset is. So cash flow pattern of a poor person. This is what he's saying. You get your salary, you spend it all on expenses, but then you have nothing left to buy assets, right? Okay. He's probably not wrong. Go look at Caleb Hammer, right? They're spending all their money on car, food. Yeah, that's the one that when I watch Caleb Hammer, what do poor people blow their money on? And you realize it's going out food, like takeout, and it's really expensive cars they can't afford. Yeah. So he's not wrong here. And here he is. Rent, food, transportation. So he's actually pretty head on about this. That is what poor people seem to do. So the taxes part he's a little off on because they don't pay tax. They get like all their money back because they have earned income credits and stuff. So um, cash flow of a middle class person, I think this is shenanigans. He thinks a mortgage is a liability. Well, the housing stuff is this like if you want to own a house, like to say like a house is a waste of time. And he even said he knows people are going to hate this part. Like I hate it because a house is to me such a great asset in America. Like, and I view it as an asset. Like I view it as part of my net worth. A lot of people I know don't include their houses as their net worth because they're like it's not liquid or some shit like that. It's part of your value, and it's a great. Now, a lot of countries don't let you have the option to buy houses and land. So the fact you can buy a house, you can put money into it and you could see an appreciation of the value of your house is amazing in America. And it will do amazing things for you because it provides value. I don't know how it provides value to your name. You can go to a bank with houses. You have assets, real tangible assets. Okay. And they open up lines of credit and more products for you where if you didn't have those assets, like you wouldn't have it. Like I have a fixed rate home equity line on my house that's like way less than what a credit card is. So I have access to lines of credit that are advantageous to you if you don't own a house. So he harps on houses, like the mortgages and owning your personal house as a bad thing. But yeah, he wants you to buy real estate though later on in the book. So I'm like, that's a weird dichotomy because for most people in America, like you might buy a house for you and maybe you have one rental. Like that probably encompasses the vast majority of America, right? You either have no house, one house, or a house with one rental. It's probably the vast majority of Americans. So we're not talking about people with huge real estate portfolios here. So I'm not going that's not really applicable. But this whole and he talks about this later. Let me get a rich person. No, he basically says like I pay myself first. So he's like take my income and I buy assets before I pay my expenses. So he's that explains why he's like 1.2 billion dollars in debt to the banks, I guess. So he's saying I pay myself first. So I'm going to buy things that produce cash flow and then I'll worry about paying all the bills and the tax collectors and stuff and let them come after me. Like let's be real. Okay, that's really dumb. I work for the government. You do not want people like me coming to see you collecting taxes. You don't want the IRS to bother you, okay? You should pay your taxes and not screw around with your taxes. And I've had people ask me, "Hey, can I do this on my tax return?" And I'm like, "You can put anything you want on your tax return. The real question is the IRS going to have a problem with it?" Because why do you want that stress in your life to do things where you have to worry if the IRS is going to come for you? Or the states, and the states can seize your assets if you have a business. Because I worked in the criminal investigation unit in taxes, and if you didn't pay your taxes, we would seize your assets. All right, and if you were fraudulent, you could go to jail for it. So I don't know why you would screw around with taxes in any sort of way. And he implies like you should find ways to skirt and loophole and all this bullshit about taxes. Yeah, okay, without a doubt billionaires and really rich people, like I said, KPMG, big firms, lawyers will help them try and mitigate their tax bills, right? But, for us, does that really matter? How many of us does that matter? None of us are at that level. And we can look at what Meet Kevin did. Meet Kevin with that jet. He thinks he's so clever getting around the tax code. But the day's coming where that's gonna the chickens are gonna come home on that freaking thing he did with the jet. So like this whole idea now, he is like he is right about this. This is right. What happens in America? You make more money, you spend more money. Absolutely. Like no doubt. And even in my life, like I didn't take vacations in my 20s because I didn't have the money. So it's like, okay, now I'm making more money. So still keep not taking vacations because it worked for you for that. No shit. I'm taking vacations now. So yeah, I make more money, but my expenses are going up. But it's not like it's going up proportionately to the income, I would say, is how I look at it. So just to blanket say this is bad, I'm like, this is not bad. This is not a blanket statement that this is bad that your expenses go up with your income. Like as long as you are responsible with the growth, and that's not bad. And it's like I like to take 1 or 2 vacations a year, right? I'm not doing like 5, but I'm doing 1 or 2. And I didn't do that when I was not when I wasn't as well off, I didn't take any. So yeah, I'm not gonna keep that going. So he talks about this shit and you know, he said this is like the rat race of people, right? Your income goes up, your expenses go up, and then you take what's left after you pay your expenses, and now you buy liabilities like mortgages. You don't actually buy income producing assets, which the house beyond the house thing, I don't disagree with him about. If you take the houses out, I understand what he's saying. Like, yeah, you should be trying to acquire assets. Now, for me, assets are anything I believe that will appreciate over time. I'm not very strict on it, but I think like real estate, if you know, if you buy, you should have some sort of idea of where you should buy real estate in your area. I picked the town I so when I looked for my house, I looked in the area, like the suburbs around my city. I looked at where the commercial properties were, like because I knew that if you live in a school district in my area in New York where there's no commercial enterprises to pay taxes, they are going to jack up residential taxes as fast as they can. If there's no commercial businesses to pay that their share. So I looked for a town that had a pretty good size of commercial to residential tax income. And so it did factor into my decisions about where I would buy a house and the school district and so forth. But taxes were a consideration. So buying a house is great, but be smart about it. You have to know, where should you buy this house? What are the taxes? You can project out some of this stuff. It's not that hard. Your towns have in America this information. You can pull it up on their websites, or you can go down to the clerk's office and get tax rolls. You can only go so far, but like not every house is a great investment, no doubt. I mean, but you have to do some due diligence and taxes and liabilities if you buy the wrong asset. Like if you don't have the cash to renovate a house, or you buy a house at the top end of the value and you still have to dump a bunch of money in it, like you've made a shitty choice. But these aren't blanket statements to say all houses are bad. Like there was a really nice area I wanted to live in, great school district, low taxes. But then the only houses I could afford that were the size I wanted, because I wanted like a two-story house. The only house I could afford were complete renovations, and I'm like, I can't afford the renovation on top of the price I have to pay up here. So it was a sacrifice. I couldn't live there. Found the other town that I care, and I love where I live. So like real estate for people like, oh, real estate's a shitty investment or it's whatever. Like you shouldn't buy a house, or you should only buy a house if you can pay it full. It's all nonsense. It all just depended on you. Do you want to own a house? Do you want to own a house? Do you want to not have landlords that can tell you to get the F out? I don't want a landlord. I never have wanted a landlord. So I don't want someone to determine. I don't want to pay rent. So um, I'm willing to take on the risks of having to fix a furnace, which I just did, and fix the landscaping and do flooring. I don't care. In the long run, I will get a sizable return on this house. I know I will. So his strict like hate, it's just so weird. All these guys like Dave Ramsey tells you don't buy your house, and then Kiyosaki is like your house is a terrible and it's a liability in your life. It's just like it's not like you can decide to either own a house or live in a tent, right? So you can't go, "Oh, it's a shitty return compared to stocks." It's like, well, okay, with the comparison though, is you have a house with ideally, let's say you have a fixed rate mortgage in America. So that cost doesn't go up over time. Your taxes will go up and your house insurance will go up, but not the actual cost of the house. And then you got to put money aside for fixed stuff. That's inflation on the products to fix and stuff. But, like, your mortgage is going or, if you rent, your rent's going up over time too. So to say one like, that's a weird comparison because if you don't buy a house, you have to pay rent to live somewhere. So you can't just objectively look at a house payment, and say it's bad because it has taxes or something. Well, you're paying the taxes anyways in your rent check. Your landlord is pushing his tax bill onto you as part of his rent. Hate to break it to you, but you're not avoiding you're not avoiding property taxes if you rent. My brother in his apartment building puts the taxes in when he figures out what to charge people. And when his taxes go up, he increases his rent whenever he can. So, it's just a weird comment by him. Is there any good comments here? Hold on. Oh God. Wait. Clearwater Tax said the IRS only comes after you if you make more than 400K. He said not to worry if you're below. I I know CPAs. I don't know IRS agents. I did know an IRS agent, but he quit. They seem to go. This was the CPA I talked to. She does like doctor. She was my mentor and does doctors returns. They go after people with like complicated returns. And when I was doing criminal investigations, we went after specific types of businesses. The short time I was there, we had like a targeted like plan to go after certain types of businesses. Let's call them. So I don't know. I mean, like that's like a statement. Like probably he's probably right. Honestly, like he's probably right. Like they probably look. Like, I don't know how the feds do it. Like the state, we had like specific targets each year, kind of. So I don't know if the feds do that, but Yeah, I mean, obviously, they're gonna go after people that itemize, right? Because if they're like, what's the point of going after someone with a standard deduction? There's really no point. I mean, all you can do, they do a quick computer match probably of your W-2 because they have your W-2 and your 1099s. They get sent at the same time you do. So they can quickly just, okay, this social security number filed as taxes, and they already have the numbers of your W-2s and all that, and they can just, if there's an error pops up because you fucked up the numbers, then they can get you. But beyond that, I've never been audited, but because of the Trump tax changes in 2017, I was itemizing before that, but because of the changes, I haven't had a, um, I've been doing standard, I think. I do itemize for my state though. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's actually doing taxes anymore. I think Echo said that he's just straight up doing YouTube these days, which would be really a shame. Like, you spend all this time becoming a professional CPA and you're just gonna like do YouTube. I mean, I'd want to use my freaking license if I was a CPA. This is kind of odd. All right, I don't really have the end of the book got really weird, so I didn't really highlight a lot. All right, so after so I guess what I would tell you, like, so he didn't writing this book in the 90s, like when I started investing in 2000, like, it would cost you, like, $15 to put in a stock trade, right? Then it became, like, 9, then it became $8, now finally it's free. So, like, buying stock, it was tough, like, it was, you wouldn't be doing, like, 1 stock a week, right? Like, right now, you can buy a freaking $20 stock every damn day of the week, right? And it's free. You couldn't do that back then. So, it's a different ballgame from when he wrote this, but yeah, I mean, you should just pursue buying assets that you think will appreciate in value over time. And I don't like people that are very strict about one or over others. Like, I don't like when people say, "Oh, have a huge basket, a portfolio of real estate, screw everything else." Then other people say the S&P 500 is the best returns historically, so you should only have that. Or gold bugs. I'm like, I think you should be as diversified as you want to be. I think it's weird to be so strict on one or the other. Like, what's wrong with having some real estate, some stocks, maybe you want some bonds, maybe you have some physical gold that you bought, and then maybe you have like some collectible whiskeys you think might go up in value. I mean, I would rather be more diversified. But let's see this comment. The war between haves and have-nots has raged for hundreds of years. Okay, the plebes and the proletariat. We're going that direction. I can this is why I cringe every time I hear a parent advise their children to go to school so they can find a safe, secure job, an employee with a safe, secure job without fiscal aptitude, no escape. Okay, this part. So this part I really was annoyed. This part really annoyed me. So before, like, okay, 25 highest paying jobs. So he basically, Kiyosaki shits on his dad because his dad was he had a doctorate in teaching, whereas this rich guy had like a middle school education. So he's like, obviously his dad was stuck in this mindset of like getting a secure job, being like in a union, staying with your employer forever, and just money doesn't work for you. And then his dad in the book, he talks about like you shouldn't become overly specialized. That was one thing he said in the book, is that you shouldn't be overly specialized because then you can like get yourself into a hole or pigeonhole yourself, and then you're stuck and you can't adapt to times. Some weird shit he said. But he wrote this in the 90s, so let's cut him that break. I work for I get labor statistics, so it's part of my job. So I will tell you man, in my opinion, the future of America, you need to be hyper specialized. Okay. The way the economy's going, you either have a professional degree career or a license, or you have a trade. You're very specifically trained to do something. And if you don't have that, you're just somebody on the street. That's where America's going. And that's how I kind of felt. Like, you either work, and I kind of joke with people, I'm like, you either work for Amazon in the warehouse just moving boxes, or you're a plumber, or you're a steam fitter, or you're a CPA, or you're some type of have like a cybersecurity certification. Like, that's where the economy is going. All right. So and he wrote this in the 90s, so I'll cut him. I think he was right in the 90s actually, because you could just go get an MBA and then you could go work as a manager at some store and make 80,000 and you lived a great life. That's not America these days. Those jobs, that's what AI is going to kill. AI is not killing blue collar jobs. It's not killing CEO jobs. Where where are the job cuts going to be? I think is in the middle management. The guys that are like they're not specifically, have any specific career. They're like MBAs, right? General managers, stuff like that. Those people need to be worried. But like, okay, here it is, like the 25 highest paying jobs in America. So you tell me, let's go through, are they specialists in some specific type of work or are they more a generalized career? Okay. Anesthesiologist, very specialized. Uh, an oral surgeon, hyper specialized. It's a dentist that goes to even further school than a dentist. So this is an extremely specialized dentist. Okay. Okay. Obstetricians, gynecologists, specifically a specialized doctor. Okay. Surgeon, or specialized doctors, orthodontist, same thing. Not even a dentist. So we're more specialized. Physician, you got to go to school. Psychiatrist, you need a doctorate. You need special training for being an anesthesiologist. Same with a doctor. A pilot, you need special training to become a pilot. Dentist, you got to go to school. IT managers have to have certificates and or college degrees to become IT managers. Doctor, here we go. So finally, we get to one that you could argue is more generalized, a financial manager. They can have different backgrounds, I think. So we went through like 14, 13 careers. Here's the first one you could say is not like a specialized type of career field. And then maybe this one too, marketing manager. Okay, but then we're back to specialized people. So you get the point. And then I can look at like, okay, and then he harps on people that like have fulfilling jobs that like are unionized or they enjoy, and you should be not afraid of change and all this. So he in the beginning of the book he said something kind of different. Jobs of great satisfaction. Firefighters, okay, firefighters are in unions. They don't change careers and they're super satisfied. Funeral directors is kind of odd. Police detectives, healthcare workers in general. But like his whole this whole stance by Kiyosaki on careers where you shouldn't be in some specific career track. You should be like adaptable and change with the times and stuff. It's I part of it's ridiculous. The other part of it is 30-year-old thinking. Like, and that's why I told my wife when I met her, I'm like, you need to go get some sort of professional career because she wasn't. She was working at the mall. And I'm like, and I was going to school too. And I'm like, you have to have a specialized background. That's the way it's going in America, to me. And you either are going to be a professional, licensed, technical person, or you won't be. And that's where we're going to go with AI. So, like, was his dad shitty and poor with money because he was a teacher with a doctorate? I mean, if we believe his background, maybe his dad was just shitty with money. All right, there's highly educated people that I've talked to online with finance. Honestly, I've talked to really smart people and they kind of sound dumb with money. Like, and it might hurt them because they are maybe highly intelligent in a certain way. Um, but it's not money. But then they have a hard time listening to people because they think they're so much smarter than everyone else. So there are some super smart people, but not with money. So I don't know why he draws that inflection point. Like, maybe his dad just wasn't his dad just probably sucked with money. Maybe that was just true. Perfectly reasonable. Or maybe his mom was taking all his money. I don't know. There's guys they're great with money and their wife spends all of it. I don't think he gets into that detail in the book. But to say like his dad, because he was like a career tracked, highly educated person, that's why he sucked with money compared to the other guy is a weird statement. I don't know where he draws that conclusion. Um, so then he gets into financial intelligence, which I do agree with his point about financial intelligence gives you more options. It lets you understand what you're doing with investing. And like I said, when things go really bad, you will understand to some degree why they're going bad. The next time there's a huge recession and your portfolio gets cut in half, if you have some financial background, maybe you understand a bit why it went down. You understand market cycles and you won't sell it and you won't sell because those people that sold in 08, 09, there's no getting that back. So the financial intelligence, and yeah, schools barely teach it. Um, some schools maybe do. I had business school, like I had a business teacher, but he kind of was a dope. So, um, And then he's like bragging, "Oh, I quit my awesome job working at Standard Oil." And then he fucking goes and like sells like copy machines. And I'm like, he's like shitting on people that are career tracked. I don't understand. Like, you know what? Some people want to do something very specific in their life and they train, they get the certificates or licenses and they work their ass off and they get there, right? And they're happy because they're fulfilling their life. They enjoy their work they do. I really enjoy being an auditor because I was a clerk and then I was freaking a construction worker before where I was pushing wheelbarrows of concrete. I'm happy as hell to be an auditor. Like, I'm very fulfilled. Like, I'm not saying I love my I'm not gonna say I love my career. That's a weird thing to say. I don't get that. But you love people, not jobs. So he was bragging in this book about how he became a salesman. Like, you know what? I mean, if you want to go be a fucking salesman, where great, great. If you're one of those type of people where you want to be paid exactly what you're worth, then great, go be a salesperson. Some people are gifted at being salespeople. I don't think that means you're better or worse than anyone else. Like, somebody that wants to go work on an oil rig, fine. Like, that's fulfilling to them. Maybe they don't want to freaking knock on people's doors and cold call people to sell crap they don't even want. So he likes like, "Well, see, I was willing to quit this perfectly great high paying career job so I could go sell copy machines at Xerox, and I became the best salesman at Xerox." Like, doesn't make your career choices any better. So I really dislike how he went to that point. Like, you can be rich. There's janitors that have retired with millions of dollars. So the career minded guy that stayed at the same place is no worse or better off necessarily by that compared to a dude who had like 25 jobs and he just pursued money at the expense of everything else in his life. Maybe it went really shitty for that guy. Maybe he made a lot of bad decisions and a bunch of businesses failed. So like, this split makes no sense. Some people do value job security like I do. I'm in a union. Like, I value job security. I don't think it's better or worse. I mean, some people, you pick careers, you probably understand the career security you have. Like, people that work at Google or in IT, probably it's just kind of the way it goes, I guess. Like, they're high paid, but they also can be, fired and so forth quite a bit. But that's not, I wouldn't rich dad, poor dad split that fact. Poor dad wanted me to specialize. See, again, I 50% think this is crappy advice, and 50% the times have changed. Like I've mentioned, that this is ridiculous these days. I think you need to be very specialized in this world. Um, so we go past that. He never understood that to be more specialized you become, the more you are trapped. You can totally pick the wrong career and trap yourself. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can pick the wrong career track in the state, and then it leads to a path that is like a job title that doesn't work, and then I can't transfer. So that's not totally wrong. Um, Failure inspires winners. Failure defeats losers. This is like nonsense. It's like TED Talk crap. The greatest secret of winners is that failure inspires winning. Thus, they're not afraid of losing. I mean, I would assume that successful people probably still like, maybe like this statement, like, it's not definitive. Maybe not. Um, if a guy started 10 businesses and 9 failed before the one at the end, like, did you think the losing inspired him to keep going? I don't know. Or was it the fear of being homeless, or like, you don't know. It would depend on the person. Okay, now real estate. So he doesn't want you to buy your own personal house, but he wants you to have this vast real estate portfolio, which is kind of strange. So and then he quotes Peter Lynch, whatever. So he's like, real estate is such a powerful tool for financial independence or freedom. It's a unique investment tool. Every time I mention it's a vehicle, I'm like, whatever. I've already talked about it. If you want to own houses, I don't think the decision should just be dollars and cents between buying real estate or not. It's just like, do you want to own a house? Do you want to own a real estate? Do you want to own an apartment? Like, that's the first question, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's more like if it's a better rate of return. That doesn't matter. The first question is, do you want to deal with tenants? Do you want to have a house where you have to like renovate? You have to like mow the grass and you have to refinish the deck and you have to have money put aside for when the furnace craps out, which I just did. So like, those are the questions number one. Don't worry about the rate of return. Um, do you want to own a house? Do you want to own an apartment? And then you can get into the dollars and cents of it. I would say be diversified if you want or not. Um, in this part, yeah, when I occasionally come up short, this is talking about his finances. This is why he's got $1 billion of debt, I think. When I come up short, I still pay myself first. So that's he takes his income and he buys assets. I let the creditors and even the government scream. Ridiculous. For like all of you watching this, this is ridiculous. You're really gonna not pay your taxes. Good luck. Good luck. You want to be stressed out the rest of your life? Go mess around with your taxes. Go and people have asked me, can I deduct this? Can I deduct that? Do I have to claim this as income? Like, yes, you have to claim everything as income. You're an American citizen. What a silly. Do I have to declare my crypto even though they didn't send me a 1099? Yes, you do. It's like, okay, you want to live a life where you are screwing around with your taxes, then fine. I can't talk you out of it. You're being silly. Because they'll find you someday. It's just a matter of time. But to successfully pay yourself first, keep the following mindset. Don't get into large debt. Don't get into large debt positions that you have to pay for. Oh, he's in a lot of debt. Kind of weird. Keep your expenses low and build your assets. So it sounds like he hasn't done this if he's 1.2 billion in debt. So whatever. He's got weird life advice. Like, yeah, you shouldn't spend a lot on cars. But again, I mean, if you want a nice car, who am I to say you can't? It's can you do things within reason? Can you make it fit in your budget? I don't particularly like to pay more than like 300-400 bucks a month per car. I just don't. Like, even though my income is goes up, I still don't want to pay more than 400 or 500. 500 would be crazy. Um, so I have a certain dollars I want to pay per month for cars, and rate my income going up doesn't really matter. It's still it hasn't really changed. I still drive Hondas. I could drive Lexuses if I wanted or Porsches. I don't really give a shit though. So somebody said like I'm just jealous I can't buy a Tesla. It's like okay, okay. Listen, I could buy lots of Teslas. Okay. This is the last comment I highlighted. This was at the end. So I skipped the whole tax part because this whole talking about loopholes. I mean, if you're a millionaire, you have like CPAs. You're not going to be reading Kiyosaki. You should have a professional help you with taxes if you get to that point in your life. 100%. Like you should not be asking Reddit about tax questions if you're like that well off and millionaire. You should go hire a professional CPA and you should pay them to consult with them and you should ask them questions and they give you answers that you pay for. You're being ridiculous if you don't pay for that service. Like you really are. So, all right. So my poor dad thought a good education, a good job, and years of hard work were all you need to be successful. My rich dad thought a good education was important, but to him, also important that Mike and I knew the difference between three incomes and what kind of income to work for. To him, that was the basic financial education, knowing the difference between three incomes and learning the investment skills of how to acquire the different incomes is basic education for anyone who strives to acquire a great wealth and achieve financial freedom, special kind of freedom that only a few will ever know. As Rich Dad states in lesson number one, the rich do not work for money. They know whatever his nonsense about money. So I have a few more slides I'll show, and then that's really it. And then off we go to bed. Or I'm not going to bed right now, but so I already showed this. Yeah, we already talked. So this is kind of the difference. It's like they were going through. Um, so one thing I like, this is like a Caleb Hammer thing too, I guess. Like Caleb Hammer covers this. Um, so the idea that you know, don't keep your expenses going up as you make more money. It's interesting to actually look at like Bureau of Labor and Statistics have done studies about what people spend money on as a percentage of their income. So you can see like this was from a Bureau of Labor Statistics study, I think for 2012. You can see though, like on average in America, people spend actually less money as they get more like on certain things. So food, the cost as a percentage of income is actually decreasing. So the whole idea that everyone just spends more money as they make more income, it's like, well, on some things, but not all things. So food, when you make more money, goes down as a percentage of your income. Um, Restaurants goes up, but not so much, right? It doesn't go up that much to replace the food at home. Housing, housing as a percentage it goes a little down as you make more money. So people, the idea that everyone as they make more money buys lavish, huge houses they can't afford. I mean, not necessarily. As it goes down a little bit. Utilities become so it's like the basic, very most basic necessities of your life become less of a percentage of your income as you make more money. So hopefully you can use that money to invest. Some people though would buy fancy cars with that savings in food and utilities. Clothing kind of holds the line. Transportation gets cheaper. So this whole idea that people buy really expensive cars when they make more money, it doesn't really hold up actually when you actually look at percentages of income. Not necessarily. But like food is the big one that drops, and health insurance, because you could also argue this might be, well, when you get higher income jobs, you probably have better healthcare benefits, more likely. So if you're making 200 grand, you probably have a great healthcare insurance that would keep your healthcare costs down. Whereas somebody working at McDonald's or, construction company probably screwed. But so, but you can see like other things like education spending goes up. So it is interesting to see the trends. And more so importantly, we can see, so ideally, as the basic necessities become less of a percentage of your income requirement, utilities, food, housing, transportation, you then take those savings and then go into your retirements. You take that and put it in your retirement account. Um, so you're holding the line. Some things go up though. It's not all saying the same. Like the typical American is doing the right thing across broad spectrums. Like people are doing the right thing. People aren't being like jackasses. Like you might know one person who's an idiot with their money. As they get more money, they just keep spending more. But that's not what like across America is showing. And this was just a funny article I found on LinkedIn, how the rich use debt to avoid taxes to get richer. Like so Kiyosaki's whole idea that billionaires buy assets with their money and they try and avoid like debt is nonsense. The rich people use debt more than you would believe. So I don't want to read through another article. If you want to listen to a podcast about quitting, this is really great podcast from Freakonomics. It's old. It's like 10, 12 years old. The Upside of Quitting. Highly recommend it. Makes you think about quitting in a different way. Because I listened to this after I had to quit a job, and it kind of it was the first time I ever quit anything. But this helped me understand, it wasn't such a bad idea. Um, So I could also say, I could link this below. So Ashwath Damora, I screw the Dean Evaluation. He put real estate in his historical returns chart for this year, I think. So I think he does this every year. And I think he added this year, someone told me. I follow this occasionally. So it's interesting though, like some people say like real estate's a shitty investment. I'm like it hasn't returned the same as the markets, but it has returned a pretty good amount. And there's years where you're getting double digit returns on real estate. Very, very rarely does real estate have negative returns. And in the last like 30 years, a few here and there, but it's all trending upwards in value. So something I thought was interesting. And what else? So here's like another a percentage of household income by spending. So another way to look at it. What are people doing with their money? And you can see, poorer people are spending more on housing, right? Spending more on food. And you could see this with Caleb Hammer's shows. That's what's killing these people. They're poor because of food and housing quite a bit. Transportation costs wasn't so sizable. And then we said health insurance, they pay more for health insurance. They pay a lot more with their time. Things can take longer if they have to use public transportation and so forth. Um, Yeah. Well, this chart was kind of cool, but it doesn't really tell you much. I already did that. So that's this guy. Yeah. What else do I want to say about him? So, like his book, there was a heavy focus on business and entrepreneurship as like the way to accumulate wealth in Rich Dad Poor Dad, which, like in the middle of the book, all he wanted to talk about was his real estate businesses and his sales and all these businesses. This whole nonsense again, where these people on YouTube will tell you the same thing. They're like, the only real way, you can't be rich working for other people. You have to run your own businesses. It's like running a business is very risky. A lot of them fail. Most businesses fail, right? And you either don't want to work for people and are willing to take those risks on, or you're not. But that doesn't mean you're going to be a failure in life because you don't want to work, or you want to work for someone or not. I don't want to start my own business. So I'm right here. I don't want to start my own business. I don't want to take those risks on in my life. I don't. I don't care. And you go, oh, you're a loser because you won't buy assets and stuff. Like I bought plenty of assets. I will be able to retire at 55 when I want to retire. So Maybe you don't want to work for other people and you want to take those risks. But guess what? You go look at Shark Tank. Are you willing to put your whole life on the line for a business? Mortgage your house, use all your cash, dump in the business, and it might fail. And you might have to start another one. And maybe that one fails too. Not everyone wants to do that. So to say like you have to run a business to be successful is nonsense. If you want to do it, go for it. Not everyone's equipped for that reality. I don't want to run my own business. So, but again, I wasn't satisfied being a construction worker. I wanted more than that. So you got to find where you want to be. His overemphasis on real estate investing, but yet not buying your own personal house is kind of weird in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Um, Other than that, there's really nothing particularly actionable in Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like there's no steps to tell you to do this, this, and this. It's all kind of like weird, like going on tangent stuff. Um, I think I could actually my checklist hopefully will provide more of a specific instructions about things you can do to actually be pretty well off and retire, be able to retire by the time you're 62 or 67. Um, so that's Rich Dad Poor Dad. Any questions? Let me go up a little bit. Okay. Rich Dad bought Google. Poor Dad bought. Well played. That was a good comment. I can't. Okay, let me say. Okay, do you like? If you don't have to like Kramer, but every once in a while, watch while you're eating dinner, or maybe like when I'm eating dinner. Sometimes I'll just throw it on because I don't want to watch the news because I don't want to hear more about Trump or whatever or Ukraine. But like, listen to the callers. That's the part I always want to listen to. I want to listen to the callers into Mad Money. Man, there's some, and it's this these they're mostly senior citizens. You can just tell by their voice, and they're like they want to buy either these high yield degenerate stocks like MPW, or they want to buy like super speculative, unprofitable garbage companies. And these are like your grandparents. Like it's crazy what some of them want to do. Yeah, I mean that's not a bad. I don't hate that. That's great. Most CPAs only get their license for the money. We don't give it. Oh dang. I mean, if I didn't work for the government, I'd be a CPA. But it's just they don't. I don't get any extra. The government doesn't pay you extra to be a CPA. You get no bonus to your salary. It's just you're a managing associate or senior like auditor. It's all that matters. He said that when he first popped up. Okay. Kiyosaki is one of the financial doomers now. Okay, I'm gonna do Ross Gerber, I think, and or maybe I want to do Kiyosaki the person next. So this was just Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I want to do, and I don't know either really particularly. I know he likes gold, but we'll do that maybe. I'll cover some of his like interviews and him the person because I'm kind of curious. I don't totally know what he is to that much degree. By assets like yield max, I said appreciating assets. Okay, let's not buy deteriorating assets. Okay, that's maybe what I would tell people if I wrote a book like this. Like buy appreciating assets. Number one, things that you think will go up in value over time. Don't buy destructive assets, which there you go, yield max. Any of these high yield shenanigans people want to buy, like Horizon Finance. Oh my God, diversified. Like, okay, Jesus Christ. Yeah. So let's take yield max and now make a basket of yield max. There you go. That's what you need. More complexity so you don't even understand what you're buying. Freaking ridiculous. Greetings. He said put 40% worth in PayPal. Oh, PayPal. I read a tweet. I can't find it. Some guy said that PayPal should be valued at the same as Visa and MasterCard because they all do the same thing. So he's like, PayPal should be worth 500 million market cap, just like MasterCard or whatever. I'm like, yeah, okay. It's a checkout button. Visa's not a checkout button. All these highly educated, wait, all of these are also highly educated, which is a good point to make. Everyone is pushing trades. Nothing wrong with trades. Okay. Yep. Tradesman, tradesman. They're paying bonuses in my area. If you're a plumber, an HVAC, or an electrician, all the companies around here, man, you $2,500, $5,000, $10,000 bonuses to sign with them. Like they're so desperate for people. Like I should have been an electrician. That's what more I think of it sometimes. Uh, Smart people, Coney. Oh God, Coney. Yield max. Trades people have a good outlook as well. Electricians, plumber. Oh my God, they're freaking. They got it so well. As long as they stick to their business and then they have a good financial plan, which I covered some of them, like the 5 options. Like it's not that hard. You pick one like investment process and you just stick with it, and you'll be fine. Um, I guess that's the hard part, right? The sticking with it, not which one to pick. It's just the one you select and stay with. This book aged like Motley Fool, book about dogs of the Dow. It worked in certain time periods, but times have changed. Yep. That's why I don't want to. Some of the stuff I would say he's got wrong. I'm like some of it's just the fact the book's 30. Like it's like 30 years old. He wrote this, so some of it's like just not applicable. Like his griping about specialized work, which you didn't really need to be that specialized when I graduated from college. They were just like get a business degree and you can go work in management. What was a push in college back in the 90s, 2000s. So he's just like that's a part of just the times he was in, I think. Um, let's see. Wait, what did you write? Although I agree, although as someone knowing tradespeople, there are drawbacks to it as well. It seems that be spoken about as a holy grail, but it's definitely an alternative to college. Yeah. Certificate, there's a lot of it's not even a trade. There's like certificate programs now. So it's like, yeah, you have a trade, which is just straight working, right? And then you have like a more professional education at like a university. But then there's like certificate programs, which can be really great too for people. Maybe that's what you want to pursue. Certain healthcare certificates and different types of construction work, maybe. What does he mean by trap though? I mean, at what point does a career get like, oh no, you've been trapped? Yeah, I don't know why you can get trapped in civil service, but I don't in general, like in the general public, I don't know what Kiyosaki meant by being trapped. Like his dad was a professor, so maybe like his specific school like screwed him or his like university system. But then I'm just like, well, okay, he could have moved to a different state where you wouldn't be. Maybe if he was specifically saying, "Oh, I only want to live in Hawaii to teach," maybe he did get trapped. I guess if you're not willing to move, then I suppose maybe. My poor dad has a PhD. Poor, hopeless, and desperate. Poor dad, don't buy LTC before the next bull run. Oh man, I got 50 mil from the bank and it's tax free. All that money's tax free because it's deed debt. Yeah, he's. I didn't the tax loophole chapter from Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was like a pretty good chunk of the book. I didn't want to get into it because it was like there wasn't much to quote. It was just like, yeah, billionaires start companies and companies have tax loopholes. It's like, cool, dude. Like, okay, I don't want to start a company. I don't want to open my own business. And he's basically kind of hinting at go do like sketchy shit with your taxes. And then he says, don't pay your taxes before you pay yourself. So like he has in the book, he's like, I'm assuming when I hear interviews, he's still probably some jerk about taxes and says avoid taxes at all. There's tax avoidance and then there's tax mitigation, like two different concepts. But like I said, man, don't screw around with the IRS. You want to keep stress out of your life. Don't screw with the government, man. Pay your taxes. I don't understand. Uh, Being a CPA is pointless in the government, especially if you're internal. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I won't get any more money. And plus, I work for a lawyer. I don't work for a CPA. I can't. I have no one to sign off on my time, so I couldn't even do it. I'd have to go somewhere else to have a CPA over me. Um, you need to do Kiyosaki's book Fake. It's more ridiculous than this. What really? There's a book Fake by Robert. Really? Okay, so what's the hell? So what is he telling me to do in this one? In fake money, fake teachers, fake assets delivers insight to answer ordinary people who haven't had a lot of financial education to know what's real and relevant in financial lives every day. Oh my god. So you're like he's really harping on his dad. Like what he's so fucking against teachers. Like my friend, I have in my group of friends that invest, one of them's a teacher. he owns a ridiculous amount of AMD. Actually, he's crushing it right now. He owns like over 1,000. He owns like 2,000 shares of AMD, I think. He just had contracts. He had 4 option contracts. He executed, I think, 3 of them. So man, he's crushing it. Like he's just like me. 55, we're out. Um, I mean, it doesn't make sense to retire. Even if you had the money to retire earlier than 55, that's the age of retirement. So that gives you the health care, which is the big thing. The health care is the part we need. Maybe if you don't need the pension, you still need the health care. So yeah, he's doing just fine. He spends all his summer doing travels in Europe. Like, I don't know why you're gonna gripe about teachers. Like, again, it's like if you want to own a house, own a house. If you want to teach people, then be a teacher. Don't worry about the money. Like, do it because it's fulfilling. Teachers are oh, come on. If you pay well next to mask on a spreadsheet, they're basically the same. I want to find that tweet. I gotta look. I saw it and I just kept scrolling because I want to send it to Fabio because it was like ridiculous. These PayPal. I mean, maybe PayPal does go to 80, $90. But nothing they've done has shown they've changed their story of what they are, a deteriorating checkout button. So, but the stock could go up for sure. I mean, yeah, stocks go up and down, but there's nothing they've shown yet to fix how can they address Apple taking their business? And then they have to make Braintree work, which is a shittier business than their branded company. But I just don't know why people are willing to die on a hill for PayPal. I mean, if you want to speculate on it, fine, but like they're not speculating. People like all their money in a checkout button. But let's see. All my homies hate teachers. Fake. How you should only buy gold. Now, see, this is where I think he's going because he says buy assets to produce income, but then he's also like, don't buy assets that are also cost you money. So I'm like, okay, so certain what assets can you buy that don't have like expenses attached to them? And I'm thinking like, yeah, he's got to be gold. He's got to be some sort of gold bug. He's got to love crypto, I'm gonna assume, because crypto, hypothetically, if you just hold it, doesn't have fees. And but then he also talks about real estate and rich dad, poor dad. So it's like none of this flows together, what he's talking about. We're all talking about PayPal. God, it's because it's the next meta. So there is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know really what some of like the first 2 chapters. I thought some of it wasn't terrible. The first like 2 chapters where he talks about just like some of the best quotes were from the beginning of Rich Dad Poor Dad before he started like read up to I think it's page 54 when he starts doing the charts to show you income, expenses, assets. When you get to the charts point, just throw the book in the garbage. Like his whole nonsense. Like, you want to know what assets are? Okay, Gap. I don't care what you say. Don't tell me Gap is bullshit. Gap is life. All right. Here's assets. Oh no, that's not assets. Is this Price Waterhouse Cooper? Oh no, what happened? There you go. Assets. That's my opinion on what assets are. It's fake. That's so crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I can read any more Kiyosaki. I mean, I want to read real books. So I am reading The Psychology of Money right now. Kind of interesting so far. I don't know if I would do a video on it. Everyone's interviewed that guy. This kind of cool book. It's okay. Some of it I just skip through some of the sections. I don't really care. Um, so, anyways, wow, this went on longer than I thought. So that was Mr. Kiyosaki. Yeah, it would be fun. We'll cover him the person at some point. I'll pull up like a bunch of interviews, and it's new for me too. From agree, I don't honestly just don't know a lot about this. I just know his name, and I know he's kind of a whack job these days, and he likes crypto. We'll get into that. So capital mindset shows up at the end. All right, we're now gonna do. I'm gonna turn this off, and then Fabio and me are gonna do a 9-hour live stream next. So you stay tuned for that. You're gonna see me pass out here. Jesus. All right. Thank you for listening. And what will we play out? Have a good night.